discussed in Chapter 4 is comparing fractions. There's a couple of different ways we use to compare fractions. The first way is the favorite way of students, however, it can only be used in some problems. Let's talk about that one though. What I can do is I can look at my numbers. I have 7/10 and I have 1/5. I can compare them to 1/2. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to think about comparing them to 1/2. If I look at 7 out of 10, well, I know that 5 equals half of 10. So if I have 7 out of 10, I have more than half. Then let's look at 1 out of 5. I know that 2.5 is going to equal half of 5. So if I only have 1, I have less than half. So this side here, this is more than half, and 1/5 is less than half. When I think about that, I know that the one that's bigger than a half has to then be the bigger fraction. So I would put the greater than symbol right there in the middle. Let's try that again just to make sure we're there. If I look at 2/7, I know that 2/7 is going to be less than half. 3.5 would be halfway. I don't have half. I've got less than half. So this would be less than half. But 7/8, that's almost 1 whole. This is going to be a lot more than 1/2. 4 would be a half, and I have 7 of them. So because that my first fraction is less than a half, my second fraction is more than a half, I know that I would put the less than symbol in between the two. This one really doesn't take a lot of thinking and work, so kids really seem to like this way. However, we run into a problem sometimes. If we look at these fractions here, 3/10. 3/10 is going to be less than a half, and 2/5 is also less than a half. So what I did on the last slide isn't going to work. I need to figure out a new way. What I need to do is I need to change these to have the same denominator. I can change them both into 50. There's other denominators as well that you might have thought of, but let's just do 50 to start. You could always multiply the one denominator by the second denominator. So I'm going to multiply 10 by 5 and 5 by 10. That's going to be your easiest way to always come up with the common denominators, to always multiply it by the opposite denominator. If I multiply the bottom by 5, I should multiply the top by 5 as well. Same thing on this side. I multiplied the bottom by 10, so I'm going to multiply the top by 10. So I'm going to change my fractions. I'm going to find those equivalent fractions we talked about in the other video as 15 over 50, and then my other one is going to be 20 over 50. So when I look at these, now I can compare them because my denominators are cut into equal pieces. 20 is more than 15, so I would put the less than symbol. The same symbol could go into my original fractions. Let's try that one more time. Now 4/7 is more than a half, and 5/8 is more than a half. So my first strategy doesn't work. I need to use what I did before. I'm going to multiply it by the opposite denominator. So 7 times 8, and 8 times 7. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do the top. So I'm going to do 4 times 8, I'm going to do 5 times 7. Again, I have to repeat on the same side what I did. 4 times 8 is 32. 8 times 7 is 56. See how helpful it is to know your math facts. Please practice those if you don't already. 5 times 7 is 35. 7 times 8 is going to be 56 again. So now that I have my equal pieces of denominators, I can compare. 35 is bigger than 32, so I would put the less than symbol in between those and my original fractions. These are two of the ways that you can compare fractions.